Welcome to Kev's Travel Stories. Each week I'll be bringing you a story from the weird and wonderful world of travel, a world that can change the way you see life and love and even the way we find meaning. Places that are iconic and sometimes surprising and even terrifying. So sit back and enjoy while we go on a magical mystery tour together. Welcome to Kevin's Top Travel Destinations. And this week we're looking at a city break in the surprisingly wonderful city of Ljubljana in Slovenia. I think I discovered a real gem, but I'm going to have to hold my hand up and admit I was not sure where Slovenia was. Like many others, I'd mixed it up with its close neighbour Slovakia, which for a travel writer is not great. But having said that, I found myself landing in Venice airport and being picked up in a limousine and driven across the border into Slovenia and on my way to Ljubljana. And I have to say, I found it the most wonderful experience. It's a modern city, but beautiful. And it's quite a young population as well. And they knew a lot about Ireland. And they were curious about me and wanted to find out more. Because my origins are both in the UK and from London, but I've lived most of my adult life in Dublin. So I sort of channel both entities through me, which is great when you're traveling. So Ljubljana does have a history. Written records go back to the 12th century, where it was a medieval trading post. It became the capital of Carignola Duchy, which was part of the Holy Roman Empire, and later thrived under the Habsburgs, because as you may know, Austria is just to the north and has a border with Slovenia. In fact, one of 6 countries, Italy on the left, and it's quite extraordinary how central it is, and no wonder it's been invaded so many times because there's lots of gems there. And it was a key player in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But finally, just a few years ago, Ljubljana became independent. It won its independence from the former Yugoslavia. It had a fairly bloodless separation. And now it is its own political, economic and cultural identity. And Ljubljana is the capital of Slovenia. As I say, Ljubljana and Slovenia actually at the crossroads of European culture. Ljubljana itself, as the capital city, it's only ever 2 hours away from a border. So you'd have Venice to the left, to the west is Budapest and Hungary, to the east Vienna, Austria, and in the north Zagreb, Croatia. Isn't that incredible? It even has a bit of beach, sea strip onto the Mediterranean itself. So Ljubljana is an extremely accessible destination for travellers from around Europe. It's trickier coming from Ireland as there are no direct flights. I'd have to have a word with Michael O'Leary from Ryanair. It just goes to show the power of low-cost carriers like Ryanair. They charge a lot to be taken in by countries, but they can transform their tourism. And certainly I think if a low-cost carrier had direct flights from Dublin to Ljubljana, you would see a huge spike. But I would still very strongly and with all my heart recommend, if you're listening to this and you happen to come from Ireland, or you're listening to this from the UK or America, or we have listeners in 111 countries worldwide, so we have a lot of listeners. If you're coming to Europe, go to Venice and catch the bus or the coach or the taxi to Ljubljana. You'll get to stay a night in Venice, which who is going to say no to that? And you will really discover this hidden gem. And if you are flying in, there's the Jose Pukic Airport, which is about 26 kilometers north of the city, and that serves international and European flights. You can drive to Ljubljana. It's highways connecting it to all those surrounding 6 countries. And once in the country, the transportation system makes getting around easy. It's a small country, so you're never more than 2 hours away from the border. It's really so neat, so accessible, and so beautiful. Now, if you are visiting Ljubljana itself, and I have done a separate podcast on Slovenia, so do check that out. I talk about Ljubljana, but I'm really going to do a deep dive into it, because if you're thinking of a city break, I think this is the perfect place to go. Now, once you've arrived, I would suggest you go start your journey at Prešeren Square. This is really the heart of Ljubljana, named after the poet Francis Prešeren. The square is surrounded by wonderful buildings, including this pink-coloured Franciscan church of the Annunciation. And this is really the gateway to the old city. Take in the sights, take a picture or two, and stroll across the Tomostrev, or Triple Bridge. This was designed by that architect Josef Peldnik. And this connects the old with the modern, and you get these wonderful views of the river. And dominating the city is Ljubljana Castle, which is perched on the hill. And this incredible fortress provides wonderful views. So go up to it. You can walk, but it's a tough 25-minute walk. You can take the vernacular from Kraków Trg, or hike the paths if you really want to. Otherwise, you can get a bus or you can get a taxi. And inside the castle, which is really well kept, you can explore the exhibitions, the viewing tower. They have a wonderful, peaceful chapel of St. George, which I really enjoyed. And then back to your discovery of Ljubljana. And I think for me, and for many people, it is possibly the hidden culinary scene of Europe. I've been to a couple of international culinary events in Ljubljana and in the rest of Slovenia, and I'm a number one fan. They have this incredible array of chefs. I've met many of the top chefs there. A lot of them are Michelin starred. A lot of them have learnt their trade in some of the high-end restaurants around Europe, America. Lots go to America, and then they come back and they bring their skills and they mix it with this extraordinary local cuisine, which is a lot of boar and wild rabbit and a lot of fantastic veg. You can be a vegetarian and eat very, very well. The ingredients and the freshness and the seasonality is really top of the bus. And their approach to it is very innovative. I'm just going to give you a couple. Gostinina As is a local restaurant known for its fresh ingredients, and their dishes are wonderful. I tried the zilkarofi. This is Slovenian dumplings, or they do a fantastic seafood risotto. And I put all of these, you'll have the accompanying fact sheet, and you can actually look up some of these places for yourself if it tickles your fancy or your taste buds. For a taste of traditional Slovenian flair, I'd head to Gostinina Soko in the Old Town. The Old Town is just steeped in history. It's never bombed, never blown up. They have had wars and rows, but it's kept pretty much intact. The interior reflects that, and there's wonderful dishes like the Kranjskak klobasa. This is Caronilian sausage, always made with local ingredients, and you can get sausages with boar. If you're into that, it's fantastic. Then there's a zaganci, the buckwheat spoon bread. This will really transport you to the past. I then always go around the central market, particularly at the weekend. It is coming down with local cheeses and cured meats and fresh produce. You can try this, you can try that. Great seafood, great oysters. You'll be spoiled for choice. And you'll get to know the locals and chat to the locals and try a glass of Slovenian wine, which is absolutely mouth-watering. Such you could do a whole podcast just on Slovenian wine. They're starting to really make their mark in Europe. What about staying? Well, I stayed at the Grand Hotel Union, a very impressive old hotel right in the centre of the old town, close to Ljubljana's main attractions. And it is a luxurious old-style hotel. Now, that you have so many options going all the way down to budget, and it has possibly one of the most extraordinary Airbnbs in the world. There's the flower shop, and I did a podcast on this, which you can look up. A flower shop by day, and upstairs is a very decadent red bed in the shape of a heart, and there's all these statues from churches, and you can use this and stay there with your lover for the evening, and you can draw the curtains over across the bed. There's a mirror on the top of the ceiling, I kid you not. You can see the imagination of the Ljubljana people. But I personally like trying some of the wine bars, and there's some great nightclubs as well, if that's your thing. I'd suggest you start your evening in the Movia wine bar. And this really has a great selection of Slovenian wines. And the staff will help guide you through a tasting of some of the country's vintages, because they're white and they're reds, and some of their dessert wines, very, very well structured. A lot of work goes into the provenance, a lot of work goes into the soil. But that's not just it. The craft beer enthusiasts are very well catered for. When I went the last time, there was a group of journalists and we all sat just on the side of the river and tasted a whole variety of local beers and wines. It goes to show that these little microbreweries are really kicking above their own weight. The atmosphere at night, it's fantastic. There's no hassle. Everybody's I met was very interested and ready to party if you so wish. One of the beers I really love is the Union Pilsner. That's one of their specials, so give that a try. And again, this will all be listed in the fact sheet. And if you're in the mood for cocktails, for example, there's a place called Nebotnik. This is a skyscraper, and this is the rooftop bar, and you get fantastic views of the city, and you can sit there enjoying your sunset. If you want a little bit more energetic, and Ljubljana does hop at the weekend, and you get a lot of people coming in from the surrounds, from Italy, from Croatia. It's becoming a real hot spot, but not too much. It's clean and it's sort of wholesome. Club Kirkus is one of the best nightclubs, I think. Great DJs, international DJs come there. You can dance the night away with both locals and tourists. When it comes to shopping, I think Ljubljana offers a great shopping experience. You've got markets and boutiques and malls. There's a lot of fashion designers and jewellery designers that really are great prices for quality works in silver and gold and semi-precious stones. Start at the central market, where you can find all of these extraordinary crafts. You can also pick up local delicacies like the wild boar, which may well be something that you'd like to bring home. If you're into fashion, I'd go to the BTC City Shopping District. It's one of the largest shopping centres in Europe, and you'll find international brands, but much more interesting, the Slovenian design have learnt their trade abroad and are bringing it back. Now, for unique finds, there's a place called the Skok Gallery Shop, and this offers some fantastic Slovenian contemporary art, jewellery, design pieces, all by local artists. It's a fabulous place for a gift, the Skok Gallery Shop. Definitely worth a visit. But of course, Ljubljana's size makes it so easy to explore on foot. You can also get bikes. Bikes are easily hired. There's this wonderful bike pathways and there's rental stations. So it's very easy to get around. And they have these little pods that you can go to. You can pick up your bike, drop it back. It's brilliant. I would also check out the Dragon Bridge. This is really a Game of Thrones type experience. They have these dragon statues. Of course, the dragon is associated with the city of Ljubljana. And it's the iconic spot for photos with the Ljubljanka River behind you. And you can pose there with a gargoyle and a grotesque looking over your shoulder. It's great. It's good fun. Then there's Tivoli Park, which is Ljubljana's largest green space. This is a retreat from the city, I find. And it's got beautiful gardens, walking paths, a Tivoli mansion, which houses the International Centre for Graphic Arts. You see more arts coming down. And really, the Ljubljanka River is central to the city's charm, and you can take a boat cruise to see Ljubljana from all the different perspectives. You can go under its bridges, admire all the beautiful riverside architecture. And I think one thing I'd note about Ljubljana is it's one of the green capitals of Europe. It really is clean. They go beyond the call of duty when it comes to making sure recycling. They're very aware of the environment. They're very aware of the cost that we are making on the environment. And I was really heartened by their approach. And no wonder they've been voted the greenest city many times. So what's the cost of all this? When dining costs, a meal for two mid-range restaurant in Ljubljana ranges from 30 to 50. Then you'd add on a pint of local beer, which goes from €2.50 to 4. It's cheap. And a glass of very good wine, €3 to €5. You can go to very posh restaurants. You will pay a little bit more. You can go to very hip restaurants. But still the prices are good. And check online, because some of these restaurants do book very, very early. What about the best time to visit Ljubljana? Well, I'd say spring, April to June. It can get hot. And then all the autumn is a fantastic time. I've been a couple of times in September to October. And There's a different vibe going on. In September, October, it's sort of, you're getting the Christmas markety vibe starting up. It's a beautiful city in autumn. And in spring, it was waking up. There's so many outdoor festivals and events. As I say, I've been to Ljubljana 3 times now, I believe, and each time was for an event, a culinary event actually. If you go outside of these shoulder times, as the industry calls them, there'll be fewer tourists. It's probably an ideal time for exploring the city. So, in conclusion, why pick Ljubljana for a city break? Well, I'll tell you quite straight. It's number one in my list of some of the places I visited in Europe. Firstly, for the surprise that it's so unknown. So you're going to be one of the first to go there. That's always a buzz. It's so remarkably sophisticated when it comes to its food and wine culture. It's so creative when it comes to the designs and fashion. And it's a beautiful city. It's not been destroyed, and because they're so green conscious, they don't allow the place to be trashed. It really is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there are great European cities. We were in Ghent recently, but some of those parts of that city have been taken over by the developers. I don't see the same thing happening in Ljubljana, not in the city centre. Okay, so it may be a little bit more trouble to get there, but fly to Venice and get the bus. It's only 2 hours. And then you have to go back to Venice and you can stay in Venice for a night. Now, that would whet anybody's appetite. But having said that, I don't want in any way to underestimate the power of Ljubljana itself. It rivals all the big capital cities in Europe and has something quite unique. I think you will really be surprised and rewarded. So that city breaks are waiting for you. What are you waiting for? You'll love it.